of India's most successful and iconic entrepreneurs who between them redefined the media industry in the country. In 2012, both sold their businesses, one to Mukesh Ambani-led Reliance Group and the other to the Walt Disney Company. Since then, a lot has changed and they're now scripting a comeback. But can they do it again? That's the question we asked the two rivals who shared a stage for the first time.
It's like the second innings in cricket, and if I can use a cricket analogy, then I think everyone gets it. It is really the second innings. So when you play the second innings of a test match, what sort of plays on the mind of a player or the captain is, so you played your first. So you know whether you've done well, whether you've been skittled out, you created a good total, are you in the lead, or is the other guy leading? So you know that. So you're not starting from ground zero when you start second innings. You also know in your team which guys have done a bit of spot fixing. You know which guys are real genuine teammates and they're sort of standing with you. You also know the pitch conditions. You've been there, you've sort of batted once and you've realized whether the ball is swinging or not swinging. So you know a lot about your team, about the conditions. You also know whether you're in the lead. But second innings is sort of the third or the fourth day of a test match. So you're a bit more tired, which is what it is in the second innings. You're older and you're a bit more tired. You're not that bouncy young 20-something that you were when you started in the first innings. And the second thing is time. You just don't know how much time do you have in the second innings, right? In the first innings, there's a 5-day test, so you can pretty much play. So it's down to that, Mini. Second innings are wonderful. They are rejuvenating. They come with a set of entirely new constraints. So what were constraints in the first innings are not constraints anymore. Capital is not that much of a constraint. Attracting talent is not that much of a constraint. Ability to fill a hall like this is not that much of a constraint. If you did that in the early 90s, no one would have come. No one would have known. So none of that is a constraint.
Sure.
What is a constraint is, do I have the energy to go and do it again? And do I have the time? How much of a play do I have?
Okay, so what is the motivation? You've already made a lot of money, Raghav. I mean, because an entrepreneur is also about the idea and the money and that little pot of gold and chasing that dream. So if that is not the kind of driving force, what is?
The standard answer to this would have been, money is not everything. But money is everything. so you do want to earn much more.
More than what you have?
No, I'm not a dollar billionaire. I don't know about it. It's good to be looking at a dollar billionaire. Rupee billionaire is a 1/60th of the whole.
Okay, so now we know where your eyes is headed.
No, I mean, money is always a motivating factor, but of course, what do you do? What do you do? I can't play golf all day, 7 days a week. I can't.
Yeah, both of you dabbled in investing and trying to see entrepreneurs do well and stuff, and then you were just too impatient, and you said, forget that can continue, but we will, step in. So, Ronnie,
so I don't play cricket. I'm playing kabaddi.
Okay.
Yeah. And in kabaddi, you hold on to someone and you hold on to them in your life, and you don't let them go. And to that extent, I think I'm looking at kabaddi versus cricket because then I feel I'm in my first innings because there's no second innings in kabaddi. It makes you much more energetic and makes you a gladiator. And you come with a lot more force. So, I mean, jokes apart, I think that's really some sense of from a motivation point of view, I think I don't look at this really as do it again or in that context. I think it's just more about it's about an ongoing journey. I think as we mature, different priorities come in our life, and I think you take on different priorities as you go forward. I have to say that I've actually stepped out of media and entertainment for 5 years, and a lot of people ask me many questions that don't you miss it, and I would say, no, I miss the people, but I don't think I've missed the sector and industry.
I'm glad you raised that one point because I'm going to button over there. What is also interesting about this conversation is that we've caught them at the right time, just when, if you had a non-compete clause, I'm not too sure whether you did have it, but that would have ended somewhere this year for you, Raghav, and for Ronnie.
I was clear I won't take a non-compete.
Okay, so you didn't have one. No. But in Ronnie's case, I guess it's somewhere there. So the question everybody has in their mind is really, are you getting back into the movie-making business? Because in many senses,
that really brought out the best in you. And I know you will say that I did great stuff around and not just in movies, but that was really the core of what UTV created. I mean, how is it looking to you?
No, I think when we morphed from a sort of B2B to a B2C model, outside of broadcasting, for us, movies was the big thing out there. But I'm not going to answer your question about on the second part at all. But, because I think right now, the exciting stuff for me has been absolutely non-media related activities. And I don't think I did that. If it was because of a non-compete, I'd have the non-compete to thank, but it wasn't that. I think just instinctively one feels that if you want to reinvent yourself, my first thought process was, how do I look with fresh people? So I think to me the criterion was much more, how do I work with a completely different set of people so that I learn much more in the way I want to progress. And I think that's been the trigger for me.
In the midst of this verbal, I wouldn't say fight, because you wouldn't like that word, but an argument of sorts on the future of...
You're referring to an article
on Quint,
yeah,
by the way.
we just published him today.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, when I saw that on Quint, I was like, is there a deal happening out there? So, which is not. Okay.
It just came to me on the mail and they said, Ronnie's writing for us, and I said, wonderful, publish.
Okay, so let's get down to that.
Sure.
The acquisition was that the big studios came.
Yeah.
And both of you were part of those big studios. Through a lot of money, it became all about big bucks, and that created an environment which made the traditional forms of movie making unviable. And I think you've to be fair, debunked a lot of that. But as hypothetically, if you were to come back into the movies, I mean, what is the model looking like to you right now? I mean, the disruption that you did, that's become norm now. Even the straight-jacketed Yash Raj Films is doing that.
It's of huge interest to everyone here in very, very diverse fields. But so I'll keep it very brief. I think the core is the creative. And I think, yes, the acquisition model went lost in many ways. And I think the other part was the marketing costs.
Sure.
And I think, therefore, just the third part, I think we all kind of introspect and feel that footfalls actually have gone forward. Our biggest problem in the entire movie industry has been that footfalls haven't increased in theaters. And everything else that you see, people are watching more of that content, but it's not because they're paying for it. So that's why the industry hasn't grown. But I think we've been going to Ficky Frames and CI for the last 10 years, or maybe 8 years or 15 years. And every year we keep talking about how this is going to be the $100 billion. And I think if you cut back to and do a cut and paste job about, can we be a $100 billion industry? 10 years back, we're still saying, can we be a $100 billion
Ronnie, that's a very safe answer. That's a very safe answer, but I'm going to quiz you a little more on that. But rather, let me come to you. You created CNBC TV 18, and I was part of that earlier.
Step outside of the safe territory in films.
Okay.
Because we also did a lot of films.
Yeah, I know.
My biggest blunders in life have been in that business. Everything that Ronnie accuses us of in his article, I admit guilty to. I plead guilty. We lost control of costs. There was a lot of hubris. We signed on at astronomical prices. The cost structure of that industry is broken. Any industry where star talent gets 50% of the revenues of the film, not the profits, the revenues of the film, will never make money. So unless these things get fixed, that business is not going to come out of the deep sort of funk it's gone into.
Sure.
Studio after studio will get out of the business. Because if talent gets 50% of the revenues, again I'm saying revenue, not profit, then there's no way you can make money. And the only way you can make money is what Ronnie's written today on the Quint. Get into the creative, control the creative. But the studio model, the acquisition model, in which you say, yes, I'm going to buy this film for X, and I'm going to leave 50% of the IPR still with the producer. And I'm going to give 30% of the revenues to the star.
Sure.
After having paid him 25, 30 crore rupees, it's not going to work.
But the thing is that
And
a lot of people have tasted blood on that. And so, to pull back would be
the ecosystem is exactly what the entire VC, private equity, and angels process is going through today. It's completely the same parallel, whether you like it or not, okay? Which is exactly that. You had, and I think I've referred to that a little bit there, that you have had multiple hedge funds that come in here and put in a lot of money, a lot of mavericks that have done that, actually to founders who didn't really know what to do with that money. I think a lot of that came into the advertising industry, and it went through a big pump up from that perspective. and not without too much of direction. So I think the same correction that's happening there is the same correction that's happening here. I don't think there's gloom and doom. It's a correction model that has to happen. It happens once in 10 years. I think it's a fallacy to think that it should never have happened. I'm a strong advocate that you need some of those excesses sometimes. It's like saying today in introspect, there is no impact of the kind of mass advertising that the e-commerce players does.
Sure.
But my question is, if they hadn't done fair amount of that, would we have had that many people buying online? Okay. So they've created the market.
Fair enough.
And now we need to address
I
it.
just didn't want to be the fall guy. Let it happen, but not to me.
Okay. I'm going to move away from movies because it has a tendency to dominate all conversation. But Raghav, I'm going to ask you, you're back in business news. The world has changed dramatically since you started CNBC TV 18. But sadly, the number of direct investors hasn't, and that continues to be the bugbear for the industry. It's a very minuscule number, and you're operating in the digital space where it's become so crowded, and even brokerage houses now have channels of their own. So what is the disruption that you're going to do there?
No, I don't think you can reinvent the model. I think you just have to do better content. Let's put it in context. When we started CNBC TV 18, way back in the late 90s, our revenue line was about $1 million, about 5 to 6 crore rupees, or in that currency, about 4 to 5 crore rupees.
Sure.
Today, the business news market, 15 years out, well, 400 crores for CNBC. I can second guess ET Now, which must be doing about 100 crores or thereby, and the others must be doing another 50 crores. So it is a 550 crore market. So it has gone from $1 million to 100 million in 15 years. So A, there is growth, not that there is no growth. B, yes, as Ronnie talked about the film business, that the footfalls haven't grown. We've been talking about how the penetration of the equity investing population is only 3%, 4%, and it has to grow. The fact is, it has to grow. As this equity literacy goes in, more investors will come in. It's a law of economics. But the other law of economics in India always is that India is a late adopter. We are a late adopter in anything.
But Raghav, that's already being served. Because I think the model that you created with CNBC, which got replicated, is already covering that. So
Which is what I'm saying. I don't think you can disrupt the model. I think.
So what is going to be the USP, you think?
It has to be better content. It cannot be anything else but better content. Because it's a pretty set model. Yes, you can do a little bit more on digital, sure. But then the other guys also will do well in digital. I mean, they've got moneycontrol.com, which is a huge property, so to disrupt that. But at the end of the day, this is about content. It's about the fact that you will have to be independent. It's about the fact that the editorial issues that you will take up will be edgier, will be bolder, will be independent. And that's a big thing. Today, if editorial is not independent, viewers and readers see through that.
Okay.
So I don't think you can reinvent the wheel. You can just make the wheel much sturdier and better.
I'm going to ask Ronnie a question. You've been in that business, Ronnie. It's very difficult to make money there.
Yeah.
And you saw it.
Yeah.
And you got out.
We're in that 50 crore last line that Raghav kind of added.
And I was part of that, so I also saw the pain and the bleed.
I have to tell you that our paths didn't really cross during the 15 years.
But 2007, they did kind of
cross. Well,
he had IFC
anecdotally,
and you
I wanted
had
to say two things
UTV,
as far as that is concerned. I mean, one, to acknowledge that Raghav definitely built a much, much larger media enterprise than we did, one. And two, and I think our paths really crossed where we started this small little channel, which we then called Bloomberg UTV. And one fine day, we just went and our ratings did, and we put out a whole full-page ad. And I think that got everyone's goat there. The next day, my ticker of UTV from CNBC went out, and that's the only time I think we had a run-in on that. No controversy here. No controversy here.
No, this is getting interesting. This is getting hugely interesting. You remember
and I've not got a clarification from him, so I thought I might as well have 150 people here and then get a clarification.
Let me add a little bit more fat into the fire. So ad came out.
Ad came out in Economic Times.
Oscar.
But that's the Times India group. It's a win-win situation for them, whatever happens in any case, right?
So you know how ratings are, they keep on sort of fluctuating. So one odd day,
they went
ahead and they put out this ad. and Udayan was anchoring in the morning, and Udayan sort of doesn't take criticism too easily. So I think he used a pretty strong word, and I think UTV got very upset with that and sent us a legal notice. So I got in at the point where Udayan called me and said, I've got this legal notice. I said, what does it say?
And from Ronnie.
Yeah.
And he worked with Ronnie, actually.
Yeah. So I said, what does the legal notice say? He said that your claim was wrong. I said, did you mention Bloomberg TV? He says, no. So I went and replayed the tape. And in the tape, he had said, one of our competitors has today brought out an ad which says that they've gone ahead. And I said, unko apni auqat pata honi chahiye. So I said, your
that's really rude.
I said, your language is all wrong. Yeah. Absolutely. I said, your language is all wrong. But you're safe because you didn't say Bloomberg. So even Ronnie knows that beyond a point, the legal thing won't hold. So I said, pick up the phone if you have to. You know him. Say it was a spur of the moment thing. Apologies are difficult for Udayan. I said, just set it right. So I think it's got to settle down there. But that's the whole.
I did the biography on Ronnie, and I read your book on Network 18. And what really stood out was, Ronnie has a reputation of being the cowboy. But you're the actual cowboy in the media industry. Because you've done far more gutsier things, and he's actually played very safe. What do you think?
Well, yeah, which is why I think
let's talk about you as a cowboy. Let's not get into...
No. I'm just trying to... The comparison bit I'm trying to say. No. I've done the foolish things, not the gutsier things.
Some foolish, but some really gutsy stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean,
which is
colors is a hugely gutsy stuff.
Yeah, colors I agree. Colors I agree. There are two bets that I think we took them nicely. We took CNN IBN nicely when we came in as a number 2 player, but very quickly became a number 1. And I think colors was one of those dream sort of case studies where everything clicked. Yeah, I mean, as I said, call us more foolish. I don't think it's about guts. If I had to do it again, I'd do it much more calibrated. Much more.
But let's face it, if he wasn't a cowboy, you wouldn't have had this line here.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, because he'd be still at it. He wouldn't be doing it again.
But how have you managed to pull off that cowboy image and be very conservative
I have
and
no
be
idea.
penny wise?
You mentioned that.
Because you were actually all your bets have been very, very calibrated.
Is that right?
Isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Huh?
I've had quite a few people who think not so.
No, Bindas wasn't a calibrated bet.
Yeah.
Bindas was a bold bet. Going up against MTV and going up against Channel V. That was...
No, I'm also saying in the post
Ditto for
UTV.
Bloomberg, ditto for movies.
Yeah.
And I can give you a lot.
No, I'm talking about more in terms of the post, UTV's going to Disney piece also. The bets, you haven't gone to OTT. In fact, very interestingly, you've said OTT can't make money because it's not viable right now. And, Raghav is in that business where he's looking at digital as the primary driver.
But not in OTT.
No, not in OTT, but in digital.
Yeah, I mean, OTT.
It's a tough model. I think one thing, maybe, and I think that, without speaking for Raghav, I think the reflection for us would be, we're too weary now to start building enterprises that are going to continuously lose money for 5 to 10 years in the hope that market cap will save you rather than true value and profitability. And I think that maturity gets into that. And if that's part of the, can they do it again? I think, yes, that's a learning.
No, that is. Grow on cash flows.
Yeah.
Don't even try and play the market. Well, if you were to ask what's the one big blunder one would have made, that was the blunder, assuming that market caps hold steady. And they don't. Market caps
you can't
don't
time
hold
that.
steady. You can't. You just can't.